Yeah, 1635 my family arrived in Wenham. Been here ever since. I'm the last one. They originally lived over in the east end of town and then moved to Latch Row in the 30s. And then my parents bought the house that I'm living in now in 1945. That's on Perkins Street across from Buca School. And I've lived there ever since. Don Killam, who was a farmer, he owned the property actually behind the first church and the monument. And actually, if you look at the history of the town, that little roadway behind the monument across the street was Killam Way, and it was the way to his farm. My grandfather was fire chief here in 1925 to 1940. My father was an assistant fire chief here in the 40s until he passed away in 1964. I went on the fire department in 1957. I became a deputy chief in 1972, became the chief in 1978. I was there 42 years. Advanced from a private to the chief. Bought a lot of equipment. I wrote most of the specifications for the apparatus at the time. Did a lot of recruiting. In fact, I recruited the present acting fire chief. He was a hard recruit. Took me 3 years to get him to join. When I retired, I wasn't really ready to retire, so I went up to Hamilton and joined the fire department for another 11 and a half years. So I'm very proud of the fact I had 53 and a half years in the fire service. When we lived on Latch Row, I was 3 years old. Fire whistle blew. It was a brush fire over on Grapevine Road. My father was babysitting. I ended up responding on the 1930 Dodge to the fire at 3. And the other thing I remember quite vividly was I was out with 2 members of the fire department burning over a field over on Grapevine Road, which is what we did, clean up the debris and the long grass and everything. And the fire whistle started blowing, the bells started ringing. And it was VJ Day in August of 1945. And then I just never left the fire department. And at 57, I walked over to see what was happening, got recruited, and never left. In 1957, we were in Manchester for a week for the forest fire and didn't have another call until September. And we did probably 15, maybe 20 calls a year. Now the department is doing close to 800. Medical aids have advanced dramatically. And we started in right around 1959 and 1960 with doing automobile extrications and started to get our feet wet with medical aids, and that program has grown tremendously to the point that they're now actually operating an ambulance. The cost of operating is increased tremendously. The cost of fire apparatus is increased tremendously. We bought engine 2 in 1952, and it cost, in 1972, it cost $12,000. Now to buy an engine, you're looking at close to $500,000. And the cost of labor. Plus the fact that the fire department is so much busier than it used to be. Before Enon, it consisted mainly of buckets, and the selectmen had bought, I believe it was 11 ladders that were stored strategically in areas of town to be used for building fires. Now Enon is actually a hand pump. It has long handles that are stored on the side. They're taken off and they're put across the front and the rear, and you take maybe 20, 30 men to pump it. And it would draw water from a water source and pump water through a single hose line to a fire scene. They discovered that they didn't have the water sources they hoped to have, so they built a series of cisterns, I believe 12 around the town. There was one in the town hall lawn. There was one at the intersection of Larch Row and Main Street. There was one on School Street, really right where Buca School is now, and I'm not sure of the location of the others. Drew the specs and awarded the contract for the building to house Enon, which will be up here behind the town hall. Building should be built somewhere around the end of May, and as I understand it, the 375 committee wants to have Enon in the parade in September. It was purchased by the town in 1849. It was built by Leary in Newburyport, and it's been in town ever since. I worked for Mass Highway for 38 years as a civil engineer. Spent 17 years designing roads. You can see a lot of them in the area that I've done over a period of time. I spent 5 years as a traffic maintenance engineer, which was line signs and signals, and I finished my career on bridges. In fact, I pretty much became their specialist for bridge repairs, drawbridges primarily. Well, the fire department, really, and in fact, I passed up promotions to stay in the area. That's me. This right here is a 1928 Stewart, which originally was a chemical truck, which you'd find quite interesting. It had a cylindrical tank that ran behind the seat, and it had a wheel on the end connected to a box that ran through the center of the tank, and you'd fill the tank with water, put in bicarbonate of soda, and the rack had bottles of sulfuric acid. And when you wanted to get pressure out of the hose, you turned the rack 180 degrees and the sulfuric acid dropped into the water, mixed with the bicarbonate of soda, created a chemical reaction which applied the pressure to get the water out of the hose. The only problem was that you get the fire out, which is fine, but any cloth that happened to be in the area within a few days would deteriorate from the sulfuric acid. So in 1941, the tank was taken off and a pump was put on to supply the water pressure. So that's the Stewart. That picture right there is probably somewhere around 1910 or 1912, and that's a picture of Enon and the hose wagon that's attached to it, which is a big reel that reel the hose on and then roll it off and connect it, and the horse and team that would pull it to the scene. This picture here was taken probably 1929, 1915 Ford. That's 1928 Stewart. It's a picture of my grandfather there, my father there, one uncle there, another uncle there. And the pictures behind there. My grandfather, my father, myself, and my son.